Now is the time our audience have been waiting for. It's questions and answers. We've got time for about 2 or 3 questions, one for each speaker. So, any questions? I see a hand up in the front here. No, wait.
Yes, Megan. Thank you to everyone, by the way, for the presentation. It's amazing, especially for new accountants in the room. The question to you is about the topic that you probably are very familiar with, about the future of accounting profession. Especially, I think it's important for young CAs or CPAs in terms of where this is going and how CPA profession is going to change, what skills are required, and how accountants tomorrow in the future will be different from today. I know there's going to be a session on it, but I want to hear your perspective. That if you look at 5-10 years from now, how is the CPA profession or CA profession is going to be different in terms of their responsibility, in terms of their skills?
And that's a really good question. I'm not sure I'll be able to do it much justice in a quick response. But clearly, I think that the skills and the competencies that accountants and auditors will need going into the future are going to evolve. When you listen to Ronan talking about some of the advances in technology, those are not only things that companies and other organizations are using to transform and disrupt their own businesses, they're also things that auditors are starting to use, and talked a little bit about the, no longer doing your 1002 or 1003 selections, but actually being able to audit 100% of the population. So I think those quantitative skills, those statistical skills, those just sort of skills around technology-based learning. So I've got 2 daughters in high school, and that's definitely what I'm trying to encourage them to embrace is just learning about computers. I say you don't have to be computer scientists, but you need to have some knowledge of technology, how it works. I think that's going to be really important. But I also think that some of the core skills, competencies of a chartered accountant in terms of ethics, judgment, skepticism, those really foundational things, those are not going to change. And I think I hear people saying, oh, well, now we're going to have so many machines, we won't need any auditors because the machine will do the audit. And I don't really share that view. I think a lot more tasks will become automated, but I also think that through smart use of technology, you will actually better enable the use of better judgment and better skepticism, because you will be able to look at populations and situations in ways that you never dreamt of before. So, so I think I think some of the foundational behavioral judgment-based types of skills that chartered accountants have have really, and I think those skills have endured through the years, because I think when you look at maybe what the typical role of an accountant was 20 or 30 years ago, certainly different than what it is today, and clearly will be different probably only 5 years from now. So yeah, the profession's not going away, and I think the profession has also proved itself to be pretty resilient and capable of adapting.
Thank you, Megan. So, Paul, would you like to take the same question or get a new one drawn at random from the crowd?
I'm not sure I have much to add. I think Megan put it very, very well. I think we're already seeing the demands, higher demands of millennial employees, if I could put it that way, already in the office space. Like these guys are pushing management, I think, very hard, and I think that's a very good thing. If you're not responding to them, they're out the door, because in a market like where there's 4% unemployment, it's hard to keep people. And so that demand of continually giving employees experiences, I think, is becoming critical now anyway, and technology is just going to kind of make that more heightened. So within that, how does the chartered accountancy profession pull its marketing in terms of its narrative? What does it want to stand for? And I think you've got all the areas, Megan, whether that's ethics, judgment, skepticism. I think they're all great words, and they're always going to be in high demand in management skills. But I think the time is now already, and I think it's very exciting. I think a lot of people complain about millennial employees. I think they're fantastic. They're well educated, better educated. They're pushing us harder. They're more demanding, and I think it's a very, very exciting time for employees, to be honest.
Thank you. Ronan, do you want to answer the same question or take a new one?
We'd take a fresh question.
Right, question for Ronan. excuse me, let me just walk to the back. I don't know what this question is.
I may regret this decision.
Anyways, good day, everyone. Former Deloitte as well, so it's happy to kind of hear people from Deloitte. If there's another accounting firms, it's too bad for you guys. Anyway, so question for you guys. I think you guys are very successful people and have moved throughout your career. But what the question is, from a technical perspective, what were some of the changes you made throughout your professional journey to be successful and take you where you are today?
So let me start. I think when all of us qualify, whatever we qualify, we're subject matter experts for a period of time, and you're probably technically most competent in the first 3 months after you qualify, and it's kind of downhill from there. I think the sort of career observation I would make, it's not about chartered accountants, it's a much broader one, is generally the thing you'll learn over time is that your output is finite, but actually your ability to impact and influence can be infinite. So it's not what you do, it's what you make happen. And I think increasingly the skills of a chartered accountant are actually lend themselves exceptionally well to situational awareness assessment, to then form teams that bring the skills that are necessary for the particular topic, opportunity, or challenge. And if I learned one thing, is it's remarkable that when you recruit people around you who are really good at what they do, it's amazing how smart the boss looks.
Thank you. So we're going to do one more round of questions, and let's start with Ronan this time. So keep the microphone.
All right.
And I'm going to take the question from the back.
Hi, Ronan. 5G question. It appears it's becoming politicized in terms of China versus the US. Do you just want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So for those who may not be as familiar with my specialist subject as others is, but there's been two kind of key debates. One is that as the technology revolution is coming, the US always wants to be first because it's good for the economy, good for society generally. And out of that, there's been a debate in two elements. One is, are the Chinese going faster than us? And are the Chinese listening to everything that we're saying? So not to put too fine a point on it. I think the key thing to think about is who's just launched the world's first 5G commercial mobile network. And it's not just because it's Verizon, it's to say that the US has what it takes. It has an enlightened approach from the FCC in relation to the liberalization of spectrum that's essential because it's the lifeblood of the industry. It has broadly constructive legislative and municipality provisions, particularly supported by the FCC, so siting, permitting, other things like that, improving. And I think it also has open capital markets because a business like Verizon will invest $17 billion this year, the bulk of which is in supporting the rollout of 5G and the enhancements of our existing networks. So it's a big investment. So I think the US is very well positioned. We certainly believe that we have what we need. We have a plurality of supply with Ericsson, Samsung, and Nokia in our network base, and we have a broad range of device manufacturers. So I don't think there's any reason to believe that the US won't be first to invest in 5G.
Thank you. So who would like to ask a question to Paul?
5G question.
Not a 5G question, any question. Conviviality.
What?
There we go. Right, let me just give me a moment to get around to you.
Thanks, Paul. All of you, it was great. I just want to ask you, talk about culture a lot. How, without beyond hosting the best happy hours with your range of spirits and wines, but how do you promote culture within your firms? And it's kind of open to all of you, but it was part of your presentation, so I thought it was pertinent to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned that culture is the lifeblood of a company, and it does eat strategy. You've got to look at it as either this challenge I've got to get over to make the business more efficient and more productive and better perform, or it's an enabler for me to help me get there quicker. And we very much look at it, as I hope you saw, as an enabler for us to get there quicker. So we take parts of it and we really try to make them real in terms of, for example, mundane things like how you host meetings, the types of conversations you have, you know, the information you give prior to meetings, all that kind of, you know, it's mundane stuff, but you know, how you look at the ways of working in an organization can have enormous impact. Small things. We do monthly huddles with our employees, so we talked about the needs of millennial employees and how they're demanding much more in an organization. And I think it's a great thing. So that requires a monthly discussion. You can't just have an annual appraisal with these types of people and hope it's going to, you know, make a change. And so we've introduced very clear monthly huddles with things like OKRs in some functions because people want that. Other functions we don't use that. We just have a discussion around what do we expect you to do in the next couple of months. Where are the barriers to you being successful? What kind of decision making do you need in order to get whatever it is you want done? So you're trying to enable the conversation, and conviviality is all around conversations. And so if we can have more and more conversations, we try to ban PowerPoints, even though I showed a PowerPoint today. You know, but PowerPoints become this kind of tunnel of the narrator's view of the planet. And even how our meeting rooms are organized, you know, not having, you know, a square desk and people opposite each other. So there's lots of different things that we would tie into the softer side of the business that we think are really enabling for us to get there quicker. I think with regard to the question on training and how you think about training, I've never done so much training in my life as I'm doing now. I find that extraordinary, you know. There was a huge surge of training in my early 20s when, you know, I first became a chartered accountant, and then it kind of went quiet for 10 or 15 years, and now I'm finding, you know, there's a surge again, because I think the demands in the workplace and the demands in the workforce are really making sure that you must be on top of your game and you must be fluent in terms of conversation around how to make things happen. If you have a large business, you know, to move it a couple of percent is just not good enough anymore. You have to kind of pivot hard and pivot strong. And so we do lots of things around trying to leverage our culture to enable that to be successful.
Megan, would you like to take the same question for PCAOB? It doesn't sound quite the same ring as Phono, but...
I could do that, and yes, certainly, certainly maybe there were some people there who would enjoy being able to partake of some of the Phono products. But yes, it's interesting. I mean, I think and a lot of what, you know, what people just said would resonate, I think, with me as well. Obviously, I'm in the position now, having come from one place where I worked for almost 30 years, and granted, did a lot of different things there, but, you know, clearly within a large public accounting firm, there is a strong sort of common culture, and, you know, look at my fellow Deloitters around the room, and you probably will identify that with that. So now I've gone to an organization where it's completely different. So everyone comes to work in the office every day, which I hadn't had an office for probably the last 15 years because I was just on the road all the time. I would hotel. Now I have an office. Everyone comes there. Nobody uses IM, and I lived on IM. And so the first day I got there, we actually have it, but then I figured out quite quickly no one uses it because I kept on sending all these messages and nobody replied to me. They actually phone you. So the first couple of days that I was there, this light on my phone was like blinking. And I didn't know how to access my voicemail. I phoned the IT people, and of course it took them forever to come back to me. But you know, don't, and then you couldn't get it through your email. So it's even just things like that were just so completely different. And I don't know how to interact with all of these people. And the meetings are all in person. It's very unusual for people to be on the phone, which just leads to a completely different way of interacting. So, you know, and some of it's refreshing. It's actually great to have the people that I work with right there. And if I need to talk to them, I just walk down the hall and we talk, and, you know, things can go from there. But I do, you know, so I would agree with a lot of what, you know, what was said in terms of how you structure the interactions among people. It really is all about communication. And the PCOB, I think, is an organization that is trying to transform its culture as well. So it's got a brand new board, and it's a very different kind of an organization, having a board and then all the staff who obviously work with the board. So there's lots of different dynamics at play, and I think they're trying to evolve some of that to be a more progressive organization and more forward-facing. I mean, for those of you who might have read the recent strategy that they published about gosh, probably about 6 or 7 months ago. It is all about being a bit more transparent, more engaged, and more outward-facing with their stakeholders. So they're trying to drive that then through the organization. But change is difficult. It doesn't necessarily always come easy, and especially when people have been doing the same thing the same way for many, many, many years. So I suppose that applies to me as well. So I did a little feedback thing with my team because I've been there now a little while. So I said, okay, well, let's have some feedback from you as to what you want to know about me. They told me my views were a little bit black and white. They did at least say I was approachable, but so I need to learn a little bit, I think, how to work with them. But yeah, so it's a really interesting, an interesting discussion. One last thing I would say is that one of the projects that we have on our agenda at the PCOB is looking at a standard that will deal with a firm system of quality control or quality management. We've recognized that in that, and I think the IAASB has done something similar, that whole concept of firm culture is so important. It's intangible, but it's really important, and that needs to be foundational in an effective system. Obviously, that's in the context of a firm, but I think it translates to any kind of organization.
Thank you. Thank you all. So, big round of applause for our presenters. Thank you so much. Connell, you're going to whisk these guys away. We have 15 minutes before the next session. You get a choice. I know that's difficult for accountants, right? But you get a choice. In here next, we're doing innovation. We've got 3 great speakers. In the other room, breakout room, the Madison, we've got the future of audit and ethics. So make your decision. See you back in one room or in the other after the break. Thank you so much.